Sam here from Sugar Spun Run, and today we are making coconut cupcakes. I never know what reaction I'm going to get when I share coconut cupcakes because people either love them or hate them. Half of my family will not touch these when they're done. It's good news for the rest of us because it means we get more. This recipe comes together pretty quickly, pretty basic ingredients. You need some coconut milk and you need some coconut extract, but if you want all of your ingredients ready beforehand, head over to my description where I have everything there. I even have a printable format so you can have everything ready to go. Get your oven preheating to 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 175 Celsius. Grab a large mixing bowl and let's get started. Now for today's recipe, I basically modified my vanilla cake, which is a super soft and flavorful cake. You need a mix of butter and oil for this recipe just to get the best flavor and texture. You need 1/4 cup of softened unsalted butter, and you also need 1/4 cup of your favorite neutral cooking oil. So this can be avocado oil, coconut oil, or what's the other one? Vegetable oil. I'm using avocado oil, which is why I kind of have that greenish color going on here. All right, let's turn on our kitchen scale here because we're also going to need 3/4 cup or 150 grams of granulated sugar, and you should always be measuring using a kitchen scale. It's the best way to get consistent results every time. If you take nothing else away from that, from any of the videos I've made, that should be what you take away. And we're just using white granulated sugar today. That really lets the coconut flavor shine nicely in this recipe. Next, you're going to need an electric mixer. Of course, you could make today's recipe in a stand mixer if you wanted with a paddle attachment, no problem. Today, we're just using an electric hand mixer. We're going to cream these ingredients together until they're light and fluffy and well creamed. We'll take a look at that. Now, when you're creaming together ingredients, it's really important that you get everything very well combined. You do not want to have any discernible pieces of butter remaining. Like here, you can still see there are pieces of butter. That batter is not going to bake up well. Instead, let's go a little bit further. And what you want to see is a very creamy, cohesive batter that doesn't have any discernible lumps in it. Super important. All right, this looks good, so we're just going to slide this out of the way a bit. We'll crack our eggs. I'm just going to use the same measuring cup that I used for my oil. We need 2 large eggs for today's recipe. These should be room temperature, so that way your batter combines the best way possible. You do always want, oh, lost a little bit there. You do always want to crack in a separate dish. That way, oh my goodness, I did a terrible job cracking that egg. That way, if you get any shell in there, which I didn't this time, you don't have to worry about, it getting lost in your batter or anything like that. Let me get rid of these and we'll add our eggs right in. We also need 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. So these cupcakes will primarily be coconut flavored, but vanilla works really well as a nice accent to that. Vanilla and coconut together is amazing. Oh, teaspoon, slightly heaping teaspoon, perhaps. There is such thing as too much vanilla though, believe it or not. We're also going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of coconut extract. Even though we are going to be using coconut milk a little later on in the recipe, I found you really do need the extract in order to get a strong and discernible coconut flavor. So we're using a 1/2 teaspoon here. There'll be a bit more in the frosting as well. A little more careful with this, because coconut extract can be pretty potent. And again, you don't want to overdo that. And we'll go ahead and stir everything together. And we just want to make sure that's really well combined. Give you a peek at that batter right there. We'll do a quick scrape of the sides and bottom of the bowl, but everything is really well combined here. So I'm just going to slide this out of the way, and we'll need our scale again and a separate mixing bowl for our dry ingredients. Go ahead and tare the scale. You need that to read 0 before you add anything to it. And we are going to need 1.5 cups or 188 grams of all-purpose flour. I do prefer all-purpose flour in this recipe to cake flour. If you wanted to use cake flour, you would substitute an equal amount of cake flour by weight. So 188 grams of cake flour. To get a little bit more fancy if you want to substitute it by cups instead. This recipe uses a fair bit of baking powder. It needs 1.5 teaspoons. Here's my 1, and here's our 1/2, and just a 1/4 teaspoon of table salt. All right, where's my whisk? We'll whisk everything together. It's really important that those leavening agents are well distributed through the dry ingredients before we add them to our wet batter. But before we start combining things, we do want to measure out our coconut milk. So this is canned coconut milk. That's what you want to use for today's recipe. And you're going to want to give it a really good shake before you pour it because it can separate, especially if it's a little bit cold in your house, which it can be in mine. Shake this really well. Hopefully we did a good job shaking that up. Let's go ahead and open this up. We need a 2/3 cup, just using my same measuring cup from earlier. Oh, See, it's sticking because I must not have shaken it as well as I meant to. And I'm down on the floor like this because you always want to be eye level when you are measuring your ingredients. Hopefully yours is going a little bit more smoothly than mine. There we go. You just had that little bump in there. All right. Anytime you're measuring a liquid ingredient, always get eye level to make sure you're actually measuring the proper amount. Okay, coconut milk measured out, dry ingredients ready. Let's bring back our large mixing bowl. Okay, we're done with our electric mixer at this point. In fact, you don't want to use it because with a cake batter like this, traditionally creamed cake batter, where we cream the butter and sugar together, you run the risk of over mixing your batter. It's not actually that difficult to do. So we're going to be cautious and we're going to use our spatula. We are going to alternate adding our dry ingredients and our coconut milk. I usually add this in 3 parts and start with a flour mixture. So I'm going to add about 1/3 of it. Doesn't have to be exact, doesn't have to be perfect. And we'll go ahead and fold this into the batter gently using our spatula. Once we're mostly absorbed, we'll add about 1/2 of our coconut milk and stir that in until it's combined. Make sure you're scraping the sides and the bottom of the bowl as you go. Add a little bit more. Fold this into the batter. Mostly absorbed, so we'll add the rest of our coconut milk. Scrape that out. Don't leave any behind. And the last of our dry ingredients. If your batter has some small lumps in it at this point, you know, earlier with the butter, you didn't want lumps. Here, if you have some small lumps, that's fine. But you do want to make sure all of the flour mixture is incorporated, like you don't see any dry streaks of flour. Okay, so I'm going to grab my cupcake tin, 12 cupcakes. I had someone get mad the other day that I had a recipe for 24 cupcakes. They said that is just too much. And I just really disagree. I think the more cupcakes, the better. But I was just really surprised by that comment. Anyway, we're going to evenly divide the batter into our cupcake tin. Let me grab my scoop. I love this scoop. It can be used as an ice cream scoop, but it's a large cookie scoop I use for most of my gourmet cookies. It works great for dividing cupcake batter without making a mess. I'm gonna have to scrape the bowl for this last one. Don't want to leave any batter behind. Go on, little cupcake batter. Scrape out that last little bit. This tells me my first ones might have been a little bit big. All right, redistribute a little bit of that. All right, let's take these over to our 350-degree Fahrenheit oven. They're going to need to bake for about 17 to 19 minutes. You always want to use the toothpick test. Insert a toothpick in the center of a cupcake. It should come out clean or with a few moist crumbs, but definitely not wet batter. And once these cupcakes are finished baking, we're going to let them cool in the baking pan for about 5 minutes, but you don't really want to let cupcakes, generally speaking, cool in the pan longer than that. I feel like I've talked about this so many times, but if you've ever had a cupcake that was like soggy and greasy on the bottom, it probably cooled too much in the pan. So after 5 minutes, we're just going to take a butter knife and we are going to gently pry the cupcakes out of the tin and move them to a cooling rack where they will cool completely. To reiterate, cupcakes must be completely cool before you decorate them or you're gonna have a mess on your hands. That being said, I'll let these cool over here and we can start making our frosting at least. And if it needs to sit a little bit while they finish cooling, no problem. Grab yourself a large mixing bowl. We have some toasted coconut here for topping the cupcakes. Totally optional. I think I have a guide on how to do that. I think I did a video for it. I know I have one on the website at least, but that just adds a fun topping that we'll be putting on our cupcakes. All right, now for this frosting, tried a couple different versions. Cream cheese frosting is the way to go for the best flavor. A more buttercream based frosting was just too sweet, so cream cheese is, trust me, that's the way to go. You will need 6 ounces of softened cream cheese. You want to be using a brick style cream cheese, not the tub kind, because you can end up having a weepy, runny frosting if you use the tub kind. Don't use low fat either. It is also very runny. We're also using 6 tablespoons of softened salted butter. I am really starting to like using salted butter if I'm not baking my recipe, and I use unsalted in the baked part of the recipe. However, if you don't want to buy 2 kinds of butter and you only have unsalted, you're just going to add like a scant 1/4 teaspoon of salt to this and then just taste test. All right, I need my mixer. Again, we're using a hand mixer. Stand mixer with a paddle attachment would be fine. And let's cream these ingredients together until they are, you know, smooth and creamy and lump-free. All right, let's take a look. Make sure we're smooth and creamy here. Nothing hiding on the bottom of the bowl. This is your best chance to get the lumps out of your frosting, so you want to make sure it's lump-free now. All right, next we're going to gradually start adding our powdered sugar. You need 3 cups or 375 grams and add this slowly. That way the butter and cream cheese have time to incorporate the powdered sugar, and that way you don't end up wearing it or end up with it all over your kitchen, which does often happen to me. Add a bit more. See if I can get away with adding all of that at once. Not the most patient when it comes to powdered sugar. It's actually my least favorite ingredient. So messy. All right, I've stirred that very well. I haven't scraped the sides and bottom, super important. We'll do that in just a second, but first I'm going to add my extracts for flavoring. You need just 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract for the frosting, and we're going to be doing a 1/2 teaspoon of coconut extract. And when I was testing this recipe, I did try to incorporate coconut milk into it. I mean, you know, we didn't use the full can. I thought it would be a nice way to make the frosting even creamier and nicer, but it actually just made it too soft and didn't add much coconut flavor. So I recommend not using it, even though I really wanted to. Save your coconut milk, make my butternut squash soup, something savory. You don't need a full can for that, should work out great. Before I stir again, I'm going to scrape the sides and bottom of the bowl and give everything a good mix. Okay, now everything should be creamy and well combined, and there shouldn't be any powdered sugar hiding in here, but we're going to check just in case because it can be sneaky. There we go. All right, you could of course just spread the frosting on your cupcakes if you want. I like piping it, it's just prettier that way. I have a piping bag here. I'll show you how I do this real quickly because this was a game changer for me. Anytime you need to fill a piping bag by yourself and you have one set of hands, grab a large glass, take your piping bag, turn the tip up, that way it doesn't squirt all the frosting into your cup, and just fold the edge over. And now you can easily transfer the frosting into your piping bag with only one set of hands. Maybe everyone already knows this, but it was such a game changer for me. And I am using the 848 Attico 848 piping tip today, which is basically my favorite piping tip ever. My cupcakes were always so sloppy, and I started using this piping tip and it just makes decorating really easy. I will link to my Amazon shop where you can find most of my baking tools there, but especially this tip, it's a worthwhile investment. And because sometimes the frosting's a little high up, you can just use a bench scraper to push it down. That way you get all of your frosting. Just squeeze it down and then we'll bench scrape it down. Maybe everyone knows this, maybe a frosting piping tutorial would be helpful, but always twist the top above where the frosting starts, that way it doesn't spill out the top of your bag. I don't know if I'm being helpful or basic, I'm not sure, but those are things that were helpful to me when I was learning how to decorate. All right, let's decorate them. Again, so important that they be completely cooled. And look at this piping tip. So easy to do and so easy to make it look nice, like semi-professional. I just think these are so pretty, and this is just the right amount of frosting per cupcake, in my opinion. Our toasted coconut is going to add the perfect finishing touch. I'm using the flake coconut here instead of shredded coconut, just because I think it's prettier, but either one will work fine. Nice thing about this is you can be super messy and it doesn't matter. Always looks good. And that is how you make the perfect homemade coconut cupcakes. If you try this, let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you so much for watching. And tell me, are you team coconut or team no coconut? Because that helps me decide what to film in the future. Thank you again for watching. I will see you next time. Oh, I have been looking forward to this. These things have the perfect crumb. They're just perfect. That is a good cupcake. Oh my gosh. Hey, it's Sam from Sugar Spun Run, and today, I like blinked weird. Whew, good save. It's giving me baker's lung. Sorry, I froze with fear.